Hey guys! So a few days ago I had the great pleasure of welcoming on the show Mr. Petr Harmy. Now I'm going to explain what Mr. Harmy did. If you already know what he did, I'm going to put a timestamp down below so you can skip right to the interview, but I'm going to bring my other viewers up to speed. So for those of you who don't know, the Star Wars original trilogy, as it was shown in theaters, is very hard to find now. The reason being is that the way it was shown in theaters is not the same way as you would buy it on Blu-ray. So you buy the version on Blu-ray, it's a different version from the theatrical version. The reason behind this is because George Lucas, the mastermind behind Star Wars, wanted to add some visual effects in his old movies. So in the 90s, he decided, okay, I'm going to add some computer-generated effects that I couldn't do back in the 70s and 80s. And he continued doing this all the way up until the Blu-ray release, which was in the later 2000s. Now, this kind of created a bit of a dilemma when it comes to film preservation, because you cannot find the original Star Wars films on Blu-ray. All the Blu-rays you find now, they all have the special edition added VFX. Now, a lot of fans of Star Wars do not appreciate these visual effects because while some do update the film, others kind of detract from the experience. So what Petr Harmy did, Petr Harmy was in his house, and one day he just wanted to see the original films as they were shown in theaters, but he wanted them to be in Blu-ray quality. So he took matters into his own hands and decided to upgrade the original films to Blu-ray himself, using a variety of different tools, using the original VHS, using some laser discs, using some few clips of the Blu-rays that were released, and together he stitched what is the original theatrical cut of Star Wars, but in Blu-ray quality. Now you can imagine that this is a pretty monumental task. Usually when studios want to update their film to Blu-ray, they'll have a crew of people working on it, usually computer programmers who are pretty experienced, and Mr. Harmy did not really have that experience and did not have the tools that a studio would have. I admire this guy quite a bit for doing that. He really is passionate about film preservation. To the average viewer, I don't think they would notice these special editions, or I don't think they would care about watching the original theatrical cut. But for a film buff like me, it really is quite an accomplishment and quite a feat. Now, I'm filming this after I did my interview with Mr. Harmy, and I will say the guy is really, really, really kind. He's a really down-to-earth dude. And you know what? He's the kind of guy I would just love to grab a beer with him if ever I go to the Czech Republic. Because he knows his film, he's a film buff like me, and he appreciates Star Wars. So, without further ado, help me in welcoming Mr. Petr Harmy. So, how's it going, first of all? How's the whole pandemic situation?
Well, it's getting better. They will be relieving some of the restrictions next Monday, so we're slowly getting better.
Alright, that's good to hear. It's kind of the opposite situation here. Things are getting more strict. Comes and goes, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
Where are you exactly?
so I'm from Canada, but right now I'm in Maine. So, yeah. Uh, I want to take things from the top. I first discovered about the specialized editions maybe 2 years ago. How far back when did you first start doing the despecialized editions?
What do you? I think we're coming up on a 10th anniversary of the first.
Oh my god! So I was pretty late to the game. So you first started 10 years ago?
More or less, yeah. I think I first started in 2010. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so 2010 you first start, and walk me through the whole process. Like, what made you want to like do these specialized editions?
Uh, yeah, well, of course, the first impulse was the fact of the original versions not existing in any decent quality. Uh, and I have been a Star Wars fan since I was like 5 years old. Uh, but of course, as a kid, I didn't really care whether it was the special edition or the original. But really, pretty soon, I think already when I was like 10 or 12 or something, I already started being more interested in seeing the original versions because I became really interested in like visual effects and stuff, and I found it fascinating that they could do all these visual effects without computers, or rather without CGI. Um, that always fascinated me. So I was on a hunt for the original versions since pretty much since I was a kid. Um, and then of course, like in around 2008, I saw my first like HD films, um, or Blu-ray films, and I was amazed at the quality. And even though the Blu-rays of Star Wars didn't come out yet, uh, you could find them online from like HD TV broadcasts. And so that was the first ever I downloaded first ever time I downloaded a torrent. I must I must confess. It took like at the time we weren't all on like dial up anymore, but our connection was very slow. So it took me like a month to download the the movies.
Oh
Um,
my god, okay.
yeah, and and when I did, I was like, "Wow, this quality is amazing! I never want to watch Star Wars in any quality worse than this."
I hear you, yeah.
Um, yeah, and at the time, I already had I skipped ahead a little bit, but of course, I had the Star Wars DVDs, and then they released the in 2006 they released the DVDs of the original versions, but they were really old bad transfers.
Hmm.
But since at the time we still had I think we still had a CRT 4x3 TV. uh, the difference wasn't very noticeable on that. But
Yeah.
once we got an HD TV 16 by 9, that difference became huge, and even more so when compared to the HD version. Um, so from there, I started looking online for an HD version of the original uh, versions of Star Wars, and there was none. There were the best there was people trying to upscale the GOAT, the 2006 DVDs to 720 or 1080p, uh, but there was no true HD version. And then there was this guy who is known as 81. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I haven't heard of him.
So, yeah, yeah. So he made this amazing like fan made special edition version. It's called Revisited, and it's like a super special edition. He added even more visual effects, but also fixed like continuity errors and uh, but when he was making this version for Empire, he actually also made like a reconstruction of the original version, but he only made it in DVD quality. So he combined like the HD footage from the official DVD, or rather of the HD TV broadcasts of the special edition, with like the standard definition footage from the DVD. And he said like the original version shots were too low quality to do this in HD. So he only released it in like anamorphic DVD quality, proper like widescreen DVD. Um, and I was asking him if he would please just do it in HD, because like especially for Empire, the majority of the film would still be real HD. And he said, if I was so clever, why don't I do it myself? So I tried, and that's basically how I came to do the first. What was then the partly despecialized edition, because I left some of the less egregious changes in, but then as I progressed and learned more and more stuff with like visual effects and visual effects techniques that I could use to combine the sources and keep the quality as high as possible, I then realized that I could pretty much revert it completely to the original version in HD.
So when you did all this, you were like 22 when you first started, and you basically did what a studio would do with a Blu-ray transfer, and you did that all by yourself. Where do you learn all this stuff when you're 22?
Yeah, actually, I learned along the way. I when I started this, I was still editing in Windows Movie Maker, and my like biggest experience of editing anything was like editing these short clips just for myself. So yeah, I just sort of picked it up as I went. The first version I did, I pretty much just cut from one source to another without like doing any visual effects work on it. Uh, and then I started, because when I was in high school, I was sort of playing around with Photoshop. That was about the extent I got with like image manipulation or whatever you'd call it. Um, but so when I was working on like version 2 of Star Wars, I started doing some shots in After Effects and like combining the sources, not just cutting from one to the other, but actually using part of one source to cover up the special edition changes in another source. So I basically started learning these little by little, like that. Yeah.
So this thing, a whole like multi-year process, and I think from what I understand, you're still kind of doing changes as you go along. Or was the 4K not you? Like you're kind of passing the ball to someone else, or?
Yeah, no, I'm still working on a 4K version. If you're thinking of the 4K 77 versions, or
Yeah, that's what I'm
those
thinking of.
those versions, those are not me. Those guys are actually, and so here's sort of the difference. What I'm doing is taking the official releases and only sort of removing the changes from them. What they did was actually scan a full 35 millimeter print of the original version, and they're restoring it in so basically they're doing it the way proper restoration should be done.
Okay.
But unfortunately, like for a proper restoration, a studio would have like the original negative or some better sources like that, not theatrical prints. But even from theatrical prints, you can still get really nice HD quality, even 4K. But there will be a very little difference between 4K and full HD coming from a print.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. So this whole process, like I'm thinking, this guy put you up to the challenge to do this, and there must have been some points where you're just like, ah, fuck this. Like, what am I doing? Like, because not only that, you can't really make money off of you can't make money off of these despecialized editions because it's not your like copyright
Yeah.
material. So, like, were there points where you're just like about to like drop it or?
Um, for sure. Like, Well, actually, like when I did the first versions, I actually they didn't take all that long because I was really just sort of cutting back and forth between different sources and just doing a few shots with like visual effects. Um, so I finished those in like under a month probably. Uh, and the reaction I got on the originaltrilogy.com forum was what drove me to continue working on those. Even through, yeah, there were definitely times when I was like, oh, so much work. Some shots were really difficult, especially with my skill set at the time. Like today, I could probably finish that shot in a day. And also, of course, I was like a dual core laptop with 2 gigs of RAM or something like that. So editing HD video was quite challenging. Um, so yeah, there were definitely times when it got really frustrating. But what always kept me going was the support of the people over at originaltrilogy.com, and later my fans on like Facebook and YouTube and all that.
So these more like tweaking, these like more difficult scenes, can you break down a few that were more difficult and like what the techniques you had to use were?
Yeah, so the one I always give as an example is, and that I think that that was the most difficult shot, or the one I spent the most time on when doing the version 2.0 Star Wars, was when R2 and 3PO are hiding in Mos Eisley, and the stormtroopers knock on the door,
Okay, yeah.
and door is locked. Move on to the next one. That scene, and then they added like this flying droid that flies like around and behind the stormtroopers, and then goes around like behind the corner. Uh, and so that was, even though it was like a little change, that was so difficult to undo because because he flew through the whole shot and behind things, in front of things. uh, and of course I didn't want to just replace the whole shot with the gout footage, because for those who don't know, gout is what the 2006 DVDs of the official versions are referred to as. It's short for George's Original Unaltered
Okay.
Trilogy. Yeah. It's someone on the originaltrilogy.com forum gave it that name, and it stuck. So yeah, I didn't want to replace it with the gout footage because that was really low quality. So I was trying to sort of like paint out the droid where possible. So that was a very difficult shot. I spent like weeks on it, and it had like 100 layers in After Effects.
That's crazy. I really admire your like persistence for that. I would have like broken my computer at some point. Were there any broken computers in the house at any point? Any broken tech?
Um,
You throwing anything?
Surprisingly not, but and surprisingly I am quite like I'm normally a fairly calm person, but when it comes to like computers not doing what they're supposed to do, I can get really really angry. So I have destroyed a keyboard or two, but
All right.
not 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 actually working on Star Wars.
Okay, fair enough. So, but that's
Yeah.
well also like this goes without saying like I rewatched Return of the Jedi like in preparation for this interview. I rewatched your Despecialized Return of the Jedi. And I feel like that's the one that's the most victim to the George Lucas special editions. Because I love the bit
Mm,
where they're in Mos Eisley, not in Mos Eisley, in Jabba's palace. And
yeah.
it's kind of like they're recreating Mos Eisley Cantina, but putting a different spin on
Mm,
it. But they add that
yeah.
stupid musical number where people are screaming into the camera. But not only that, with your editions, the one thing that really struck me while rewatching your Despecialized editions was, like you said earlier on, how much craftsmanship they had back then. I started noticing rear projections and puppetry that I've never noticed before, and it
Yeah,
really did
yeah.
bring like more of an admiration to the original trilogy and what they did.
Mm.
And you talk about on your YouTube channel how you want your brother to enjoy Star Wars the way you enjoyed
Yeah.
Star Wars the first time you watched it. Do you think there's a difference whether or not he's introduced to the George Lucas editions or the original ones?
Well, I guess like in truth, for a kid, it probably wouldn't make that much difference. It didn't really make much difference for me when I was a kid. Like, actually did see the original version of Star Wars first, but for Empire and Jedi, I actually saw the special editions first, and only then was able to find like VHS copies of the original versions. Um, and I loved them, anyway, like it didn't really change anything for me. Uh, but I still think like objectively the original version is the better version, or subjectively is more accurate. Like it's a matter of opinion, but um, but to me definitely the original version is better. So so I definitely when I show Star Wars to someone who hasn't seen it before, I definitely prefer to show them the original version.
Yeah, like I get that too, and it's one thing like I like watching these older movies with like my non-film friends and just pointing out like,
Mm.
oh, that's just a rear projection. They're projecting an image onto a screen or stuff like that. It makes the film a bit more tangible to the viewer. That's
Mm.
one thing I don't really I'm not one of these people like anti CGI or anything like that, but like
Mm.
I want like it's so like there's such a wall between like computer animation that like you just can't put like your finger on it. It's like so
Yeah,
intangible.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And another thing is that like I have no problem with CGI in general. The problem with the Star Wars special editions is that those are movies from the 1970s, and the CGI just sticks out like a sore thumb.
it
It's
definitely does. Yeah.
yeah, it just, you can feel that it doesn't belong in there, and that's the problem. Also, of course, it's CGI it's cheap CGI because they didn't have a big budget for the special edition, so it's cheap CGI from 1997.
Yeah.
So so right now, I think the CGI from 1997 feels more dated than the optical effects from 77 do.
That's actually true. That's a good point you bring up. And also, while like looking at your channel before this interview, I noticed like you spend a significant amount of time on the color correction, making sure that the
Mm.
colors are more like the original versions and
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
Blu-ray. Can you explain how did the Blu like how did the color evolve from edition to edition?
Yeah, well, I have no idea how it actually like happened. Well, I've read some articles and interviews, uh, but it's quite apparent that for the DVD and later Blu-ray versions, they just wanted to modernize the look of the film. Actually, like the original special editions that were shown in theaters in '97 had the color palette very close to the original versions. But then for DVD and Blu-ray, they decided to give it a more like cool, bluer, but like more modern, contrasty look. Uh, and I don't like this in any sort of new film transfers when they try to modernize the color palette, because uh, because it just the film just belongs in some era and it should stay there, in my opinion. It Because when I'm watching, say, an Indiana Jones film, I want to feel like I'm watching a film from the 80s.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Uh, so I just want like this like as a Star Wars fan, ex-Star Wars fan, I would say, because when I think about it, I only like the original trilogy and maybe like a few films here and there. But I want to like what is going on. I want to dissect George Lucas a bit. Like I can understand why you want to revisit old material, and that's something you're doing as well, right? Like you did the original Harmy like Despecialized editions, and you're still working on them, trying to bring them to 4K. I can like understand why an artist wants to revisit old material and perfect it, but why do you think George Lucas wants to make that the exclusive version? Like, why doesn't he want people to see the original films?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I guess at first he just thought, and I can understand. Like he thought he was making the films better. Like otherwise he wouldn't have. He didn't on purpose make them worse. Like he did think he was making them better. So and from there he probably just thought, why would I don't want people to watch the worst version. I want them to watch the better version. Uh, and then I think in some way I think he has a love-hate relationship with his fans, just like his fans have a love-hate relationship with him. Uh, and I think it's a bit of a uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
He's basically. Do you
I
think
don't
he's doing like a fuck you to the fans?
yeah, that word I did find, but I didn't want to use it.
Okay, I
Yeah,
used it for you then. But yeah, it does feel like a
yeah,
bit like that because like
yeah,
even like when I watched the prequels, like the most hated character ever since the movie
yeah,
Phantom Menace came out was Jar Jar Binks. And when
yeah,
people complained about it, I feel like he just doubled down. He was like, "Okay, Jar Jar Binks is gonna be leader of the Senate in Episode 2." Where you're just like, "What?"
yeah,
He does like doing that.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does that on purpose. Like, and the same thing with like on the Blu-ray release. Like in episode 3, everybody was laughing at Darth Vader's no. So then, so then for the Blu-ray release, he decided to shove it in Return of the Jedi as well.
yeah,
So
that's
for no
right. I
reason.
forget that because I don't have the Blu-rays. Uh,
Yeah. So when Vader throws the Emperor down the generator shaft or whatever it is, in the Blu-ray version, they added the no to that scene, and it's there is absolutely no point to that change other than to say "f you" to the fans. We're laughing at the.
but yeah, that's just how filmmaking was like back in George Lucas's era, I guess. It was all about the artist. Didn't give a fuck about the studio. You don't give a fuck about the fans. It's just you do whatever you want. And I do
Yeah.
respect the guy for that. Uh, Looking back at it, I was rewatching his other movie, THX 1138, and that's a movie I really love. And I was rewatching it. I bought the Blu-rays, and they have that really jarring special editions in there as well. I don't know if you're aware of those.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. I know.
do you
Yeah,
know?
he's
Sorry, go
uh,
ahead.
I'm glad. I'm pretty glad that Steven Spielberg has uh, sort of seen through that, because he started doing the same thing. Like there in the DVD version of Indiana Jones, there are some CGI shots, and he did the whole special edition of ET,
Yeah.
uh, a lot of CGI changes, and like make it more kid friendly. They remove guns and replace them with walkie talkies.
Yeah,
All
that's
that.
right. I remember that.
But then for the Blu-ray release, he said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Like here's the original version as it was in theaters, and uh, so at least he's seen the light. But I do have, like, for ET, I do have the special edition of ET, or whatever it was called, like the CGI edition. I do have it in HD from some HDTV broadcast. I have it archived because I find it fascinating, like the different versions. And for Star Wars, it would be the same. Like I would love to have a new updated special edition every time the movie is released, like just to see it in a new way. But I want the original version to exist at the same time in the same quality, and that's not that much to ask. Like other movies did that, so
Yeah, it's such an easy thing to just put on the Blu-ray. It's like, what version do you want to watch? And that's something I like about what Ridley Scott did with the Blade Runner movies, because he's obviously passionate about the final cut. The final cut is his definitive cut,
yeah,
but he'll still make the theatrical cut and the director cut available. It's just he personally prefers the final cut. And I wish all these directors just went down the same route as Ridley Scott. I give the guy props for that. Do you see the original Star Wars movies coming out on Blu-ray from Disney now that George Lucas is not as involved? Do you think that's ever going to be a thing?
I hope so. Like I think at some point, like I don't want to say it, but I feel like they're just waiting for George to die.
Yeah, it's Disney. They're a company. They're definitely doing that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you see, I admire you because you're really like film preservation first. If I did what you did and like spent numerous hours doing these special editions, I would hate it if Disney released the original versions on Blu-ray.
Oh no, I would love it. And although like what with one caveat, and that is that I'm afraid that they're just screwed up.
Yeah.
Like it's like seeing what they did with the 4K versions of the special editions. They're like denoised to death, uh, and I'm afraid they would probably do the same thing with the original versions. But still, like an official release would be like a huge satisfaction, if nothing
Yeah,
else.
it would definitely be a big win for the fans. Kind of like something like, well, just recently we had the Justice League Snyder cut that came out, and that was like a bit of like the fans finally winning. What were your thoughts on that Snyder cut, by the way?
Well, I think my opinion is a bit controversial on that. I actually like the Joss Whedon cut better.
Oh, okay. I like that, going against the grain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't like either of them, but at least the Joss Whedon cut was shorter and, and therefore less boring. Like the Snyder cut could have definitely been a better version if it wasn't 4 hours long.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see like that the fact that it was 4 hours long was sort of what made it better. Like they had more character development and all that. But I think some other scenes could be cut and the character development could be kept.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from too. Like, there's a like they did reshoots and they had like Joker and stuff in there when he was not supposed. Like, you can cut all that out. Since we're on the topic of modern film, I have like an age long debate for you. This is like the biggest fan debate ever. What is better, the Star Wars prequels or the Star Wars sequels?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. To me, uh, I would probably have to go by the individual films because but I would say the sequels are better. But if I had to say either prequels or sequels, but I really but to me like uh, the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi are better than any of the prequels, but the Rise of Skywalker is worse than all the prequels.
Oh, okay. That's
So it's hard to like well, maybe not all. Like I think it's on about the same level for me as like episodes 2 and 3. But I still enjoy the Phantom Menace for what it is. And I loved it as a kid, so it's also the nostalgia probably a little bit. But I think that that's the best of the prequels. It's the most like um it probably has the best acting, and it's the most sort of cohesive story. Uh, and definitely visually, it was still shot on film, and they used a lot of model work and all that. So it looks the best of the three. Um, and yeah, that one's definitely better than the Rise of Skywalker. And yeah, probably Rise of Skywalker on about the same level as episodes 2 and 3 for me.
I can kind of like the way I see it, it's like the Star Wars sequels are like McDonald's, and the Star Wars prequels, it's like some fancy food that just tastes bad. So
Maybe.
so like I can kind of respect the prequels for trying something new, and I can, especially with Phantom Menace, I kind of have newfound respect for that film because of what you said. They did so much when it came to practical effects and mixing it in with CG. And what fans complain about in that movie is all the space politics, but that's the shit I kind of find like entertaining about the movie, to be quite honest. But
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you, and actually, I think that's a perfect metaphor, because I would have McDonald's over bad tasting fancy food any day.
that's very, it's a matter of taste, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah,
I just I respect George Lucas for what he did, and the way Disney kind of, like, it's hard to take away the Star Wars sequels behind the scenes stuff out of my head. The way they kind of
yeah,
backstabbed George Lucas, kind of, I don't care if
yeah,
like his vision was stupid, like he wanted to do like microscopic creatures doing stuff for the Star Wars sequels, and that was like a little weird.
yeah.
But the way they
I
backstabbed,
don't I don't think backstabbing is the right word. Like, he sold it, like that. If he wanted to make he had enough money, or could have definitely got enough money to make those films himself if he had wanted to. But he didn't. He sold it to Disney. Disney,
yeah.
mind you, right? That's company. So like, and of course, who there was no one else who would have paid $4 billion or whatever they paid for the franchise. So yeah, he sold it. He got his money. Like, they had all the
Yeah, I
all
guess I
the
can't
rights.
feel too bad for the guy. He's a billionaire at
Yeah,
this point at the end of the day, but uh going
and and he,
I'm
and he
sorry.
could have made the films, and he didn't. I know he didn't want to direct anymore, but he didn't direct Empire and Jedi either. Like, he could have just written the stories and hired a director to do it. So if he wanted those stories made, he shouldn't have sold it. He should have made them.
That's fair enough. So you said you're still working on these special editions, putting them into 4K, which is awesome. I don't have a 4K TV, but when I do, I'm looking forward to watching those. What else are you up to? So what happened after like you released these specialized editions? Like where did your life kind of go from there?
Oh yeah, like, you said before that I wasn't making any money uh, from the Despecialized edition, and that's true, and that's still true. Uh, but it definitely did pay off for me in other ways, because uh, when I was working on the original Despecialized version, I was actually studying to become an English teacher.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and that's what I actually did for a couple of years after university. Um, but through the Despecialized editions, I was able to get a job in the visual effects industry. Uh, and at first, I actually did like movie remastering for this company, uh, Ultraflix. It was like a 4K streaming service, and I did like movie remastering. And then that sort of fell apart, and so I applied for a job in a company that I've heard of for years and always was like if I could someday work there, that would like I would have made it. And yeah, I got a job there, and I have been working. uh the company's called UPP, and it's like the biggest visual effects company in my country,
That's
probably
awesome. Good for you, man.
in all of Central Europe. So I've been working there for like 4 years now. Uh, I started as a Roto Artist, which is like the lowliest job in visual effects. Uh, Roto is basically like frame by frame cutting out, uh, you know, things, characters, or cars or whatever from the background. When there's no green screen, it has to be cut out by hand, frame by frame. So that's how I started in that company. And right now I'm actually the head of the rotoscoping department, and I'm also a visual effects compositor, which was sort of my dream to become a compositor. What I do is like when there is a green screen, uh, I do the replacing the green screen with whatever like matte painting or a 3D background we get, or uh, all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Really happy for you. And what about the English teaching? Did that kind of just uh like do you find
Yeah, I hated
you hated that?
that.
Okay.
Did. I hated that so much, and I didn't know I would. Otherwise I wouldn't have studied it. But it was like very, and my job right now is stressful sometimes. But this one was stressful for me every day.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
and especially maybe if I taught in like a regular school, that would have been different. But because I taught in language schools, where your students are actually your paying customers,
Oh, okay. I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Because
that was very stressful for me, and I had to. And I'm actually not that great at like improvising. Uh,
yeah.
when I'm, like this, when I'm talking about a subject that I'm very interested in or have a lot to say about it, I don't have that much of a problem with it. But like when I'm supposed to like improvise a lesson, I could never do that. So I had to like meticulously prepare every lesson. So I spent more time preparing than actually teaching. So that wasn't great, and it wasn't very well paid either. So
Okay. Yeah. Like most teachers
yeah,
are, I guess. But
yeah.
uh, so you're still working for this visual effects company?
Yeah, I'm still working there, and hopefully will for for some time to come. Of course, like the visual effects industry was hit by the coronavirus crisis, because films stopped shooting, so
Yeah.
there's not much material to work on. But luckily, UPP has been able to get through it so far, and it seems like we will come out the other end uh, even stronger. So yeah, that's working out so far anyway. Um, I know a lot of people from the industry who have lost their jobs during the Corona crisis. So I've been very lucky. Um, yeah, and you asked also like what I was up to other than this. Of course, like I'm I spend a lot of time working, but in my free time, I actually found some new hobbies. since like when I was studying, working on Star Wars was like my main hobby. That was what I spent like 90% of my free time doing. Uh, but of course, I have since found some new hobbies like photography and videography. So I'm actually doing some vlog videos for my YouTube channel, and I really enjoy doing that. Even though they're like compared to like when I make a video about Despecialized or about like Star Wars, it gets like 5-10,000 views, and my vlogs usually get like 500 views or something. But I still do them because I really enjoy doing them. And actually, the fact that I'm not trying to like make money on YouTube
Yeah.
makes it much easier because I can just do it whenever I feel like doing it and not feel pressured.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, like sometimes you just got to do what you want to do, and like who knows, like people might follow it, people might not, but if you're enjoying
Yeah.
like this channel here, it's not a big channel. We're only maybe like 100 of us. So, but uh I'm just doing what I like doing, and what I like doing is just talking
Yeah.
about film and stuff like that, having these kind of discussions, just escaping life and just doing like that. It just feels so good, especially in
Yeah.
these times where like there's so much things that can stress you out. It's just like a nice, cozy environment where we can do stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna go back to your career as visual effects. I don't know if you're allowed to say any of this, but any films that like people might know out there, like or restorations for 4K.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not allowed to say what I'm working on right now, but I can definitely say what I've worked on in the past. So when I started and I was a Roto Artist in UPP. We were actually working on Blade Runner 2049.
That's awesome.
So I have a hand in that, although very very small. And also at the time we were working on the original Wonder Woman movie for Warner Brothers, and recently we did the new Terminator movie,
Oh,
and I
okay.
did
So
quite a
the one who
I did
what was that? Terminator
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. There we go. Yeah, that one was actually okay. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. Like there must be something kind of
Yeah.
exciting. Like I've never had this really feeling in my life. Is there something like a movie like Blade Runner 2049, which is like a well-respected movie at this point. Everyone enjoys it. I love the movie to pieces. There must be something
Yeah.
exciting about going to the theater, and even if it's just like a fraction of a second of a VFX you worked
Yeah.
on, just like spotting it and seeing what you've contributed to the film. Do you get that?
Yeah, totally. And of course, yeah, on Blade Runner, I really like. I did a couple of shots, but some of them were ended up being cut from the film. So I only worked on like one shot in the that is in the finished film. But still, like when that shot comes up, like that that's a great feeling, especially in the theater. But on Terminator, I did like 15-20 shots
That's
uh,
awesome.
actually compositing. So yeah, that was pretty amazing seeing that in the theater. Uh, Even though uh, the movie wasn't the best, but it was like you said, it was okay. It was like of like the last 3 or 4 sequels, it was probably the best one. So I enjoyed that. And then also like those are like the big blockbuster films. Uh, but being a small company, we usually don't get to work on like the best shots. Those usually go to like ILM and
Yeah.
those guys. Uh, so I actually enjoy working on like smaller shows like we did because we do get the best shots, work on the best shots in those. So we worked on stuff like Genius, for example. It's a show about the first season was about Albert Einstein, and the second season was about Pablo Picasso. Uh, and that's those sort of historical shows usually are full of like invisible effects. Uh, removing like modern stuff from the streets when it's shot on location and that kind of stuff. But then we did some fantasy stuff like Carnival Row on Amazon, and I actually really enjoyed watching that, and I'm looking forward to season 2. Uh, and that was a pretty awesome like fantasy show. So we did some really great shots on that. So I'm very proud of that. And one of the shows that I'm most proud of, and it was actually one of the first ones I got to work on as a compositor, was the show called The Terror. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I'm not a big TV guy, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but it was pretty big when it came out. It's about like in the uh, late 19th century. Uh, these two ships went exploring in the Arctic Circle, and they got lost there. And and only recently they actually found the wrecks of the ships, like just frozen in ice somewhere up north. Uh, and so it was like the story of those ships, and that we had some really amazing shots in there of like the ice environment. It was mostly shot on green screen, so
You must like it when a show or a movie is shot on green screen because it gives you more. Does it give you more like creative liberty or like stuff you can do and play around with?
in a way. But then also like I like it when they do stuff practically, and then sometimes you have like just a small green screen, and the rest of the set is practical. Of course, like for this show, for example, they built like full scale ships in the studio, so we were putting the backgrounds behind the ships and stuff, but they did build the actual ships in the studio, so that was pretty awesome too.
Like what I keep realizing is that you're like a you're a true artist and I'm a bit of a selfish asshole. Because if I'm in your position, I'm like, I want all the green screen. I want to do this my way. I want to like have some fun here. And you're always at the service of the final product. Like, no, you got to throw in some practical effects. Same thing. Back when we are talking about releasing Disney releasing the Blu-ray version, I don't want them to release it. I spent all this hard work, fucking doing these things. You're gonna go and release it, but I mean, that's what I admire about you. You're just like a hardworking individual at the end of the day. You're just selfless.
Well, thank you for saying that. Although, like, if you like after try spending 2 years replacing green screens, you will see that it's not always that much fun. And also, as a like, I do get to put some artistic input into it, but most of the decisions are made by like the visual effects supervisors and
Yeah.
the director, right? So it is artistic to a degree, but to it's like 50-50 artistic and technical, like.
Yeah, I can see that, especially when you're working on a movie like Wonder Woman. I'm sure like everything is pretty managed. Pretty.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's like you said, doing these smaller projects are definitely more fun. I want to bring the conversation just a bit back to film preservation because in the topic of film preservation, I feel like you're like pretty gold standard. Like you went out of your way, you worked on all this shit, and just for film preservation. And we talked a bit about how like to your brother, the Star Wars Despecialized edition probably doesn't have much effect on their enjoyment. Just for you personally as a fan or as a movie lover, why is film preservation so important?
Well, these are works of art, right? So I think all art should be preserved as much as possible, especially now with digital. Like you can scan the original negative at like 8K, and then you can do whatever changes to it digitally, and you can still have that original preserved. Um, so that's the advantage of film. Like if someone painted over the Mona Lisa, there's no Mona Lisa anymore. But but with film, you can restore multiple different versions, and that's great. So I think the original versions, they don't necessarily have to be the only versions, but they need to be preserved as cultural artifacts, because and again, like to me, when I was just discussing this with someone, like people being obsessed with like what is and isn't canon, and that kind of stuff. Like to me, that's not that important, because Star Wars, while it is a great story, like to me personally, it's got more value as like a technical achievement. Uh, and because the story really, and everybody knows this, it's sort of an amalgamation of like myths, and it's sort of run of the mill basic storyline, right? When it comes down to it,
Yeah.
uh, it, great in execution, but
It's cowboys
the
and
story,
Indians.
it's not Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so so that's great, and I enjoyed the story as a kid. I enjoyed it for the story mostly, but also even at the time, like I mostly enjoyed the visual effects and the lightsabers and all that. So to me, like at this point, Star Wars is much more of a technical achievement, and that's what's being destroyed by the special editions. Like the story, except for some exceptions like Han shooting first and all that jazz, but mostly the story is just the same, whether you're watching the special edition or the original version. But the technical achievement that was the original version is being destroyed by uh, putting CG stuff over it. So that's where I
Yeah, and
um,
unfortunately, like
yeah.
I feel like the trend is just gonna continue because even movies like even like Lion King, the director of the original, the cartoon, not the live action, he didn't like one
Mhm.
of the shots with the crocodiles in it, so they just
Yeah,
reanimated the part with the crocodiles, and it's just like a one
yeah,
tiny little scene, and
yeah. That's why I don't really trust Disney, even if they did release the original versions, that they would actually be the original versions, because they do this all the time with their films. Like
yeah,
99% of the Disney films have some alterations on Blu-ray.
and it's really a shame because like going back to the Star Wars one, what if you're a person who's working on these rear projections, or if
Mm,
you're like working on the Lion King, what if you're one of the people who drew those original
yeah,
crocodiles? It must be
yeah,
like such a
yeah,
big slap in the face. They're like, oh, we don't
yeah,
appreciate your work. Every time we're releasing it, we're removing that scene. Even in Star Wars,
yeah,
like they removed the original Boba Fett voice, which to
yeah,
me that's so disrespectful to the original actor of Boba Fett. Like,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's like money. It's all about the money. So
mm,
it's less and less about art, like artistic vision, which
yeah,
is kind of
yeah,
falling to the wayside. Uh, yeah, it's kind of just all a shame to be quite honest. And
mm.
yeah. Do you so other than your vlogs you talked about on your YouTube channel, the like the photography vlogs. So what else is your YouTube channel all about?
Right. Well, yeah, I do those little blogs, and I do a lot of videos about Star Wars and about Despecialized. I have recently started live streaming. Uh, so I so far I did 2 live streams, and I sort of show how I work on Despecialized. Although like it's really hard when you have like 100 people looking over your shoulder, it's really hard to concentrate and do the work properly. So I usually, whatever I do in the stream, I usually have to redo after anyway. But it's still fun to like have because it has a live chat, so I can do like have like live interaction with the fans, and that's really fun. Um, I also do some retro tech videos. I really
I enjoy
like,
watching those, especially
yeah,
like just in the
yeah,
background behind you. You have all of, like these apparatuses, and it's fun just getting to know them.
yeah. Yeah, so I did some retro tech videos about like 8 millimeter projectors, and I'm actually working on one right now because I bought my first Laserdisc player.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw that.
I'm working on a retro tech video on Laserdisc, um, and uh, and yeah, sometimes I do like movie reviews, stuff like that. I probably I should have separate channels for all those, but I can't be bothered to start a new channel.
Yeah, what
Uh,
I'm noticing about YouTube is just like it's about personality. Like people, I kind of just want to see you. They don't really
yeah,
care about like
yeah,
compartmentalizing what the channel is about. It's more about the person, and that's what I enjoy about YouTube. So
yeah,
I don't think there's an issue in doing that. It's
yeah.
just,
That's totally true. Uh, when I'm looking for some tutorial about say like I just bought a new gimbal, like a camera stabilizer. I was looking for like a video about it, how to like set it up and all that. Um, and I found tons of videos. Uh, and yeah, I watched the videos and or some of them, and even though I enjoyed them and found them very informative, if I didn't if I didn't find the person entertaining, I wouldn't go and look at their other videos. But for example, when I was looking for some tutorial on Premiere or something, and Peter McKinnon came up, uh, I immediately clicked on his other videos and more, and so it's definitely about the power of personality on YouTube.
yeah, and that works to like its strength, but it also kind of works to its weakness sometimes. Sometimes people will just like you get those YouTube tropes, the hey guys, yeah, 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 like stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
you gravitate towards what you like, I guess. Uh, I don't know. Like we're about to wrap things up right now, I guess. Do you have anything else you just want to chat about, or?
Mm, nothing really comes to mind. Yeah, I also started actually doing some interviews on my channel. And I just did one with. So far, I did a couple of them with like fellow smaller YouTubers or like Star Wars themed YouTubers. And I just did one that I'm still in the process of editing, and it was with a very old friend of mine. Uh, 10 years now actually, because he's one of the OG Despecialized fans. He was like, and we he helped me out in the beginning with like he sent me a hard drive when I needed a hard drive because I was a poor student back then, and so we started talking, and we at first we talked about Star Wars, and then we really became very good friends. And he also has a little YouTube channel about like Star Wars collecting. So I think people are gonna enjoy that because being old friends, it's always more fun listening to two people have a chat when you can tell that they
Yeah,
know and like each other. So I think that's gonna be a fun one.
that's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you guys. Well, thank you for doing it. Gonna talk to the camera here. thank you guys for listening. If you want to look at Petr Harmy's YouTube channel, you can go in the link down below, and he's got a bunch of great stuff down there. I highly recommend it. And on that note, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you learned stuff, and I'll see you guys around. Bye.